Happy Wednesday, everybody. Today we're going to do layout update number 3. Alrighty, jumping right into this. I have done quite a bit of work, and we'll do a walk around here after we chat about what my main topic of this layout update is. But first and foremost, why have I not started doing more scenery and kind of started moving this along? Well, I've had this in the rail testing phase for a pretty good amount of time now, about a month. And the reason for that is, one, obviously I want my rails good and solid and everything to be super reliable. But I have noticed this in the past, that it seems like foam tends to warp over the first week or two that you have it on your layout. At least pink foam. Styrofoam has a little bit different way of interacting. It's not as strong or as resistant to bending as this pink foam is. So it almost is worse in certain respects. It, especially if you're using that plaster, I want to say it's Plastamold, we're using that to do rock work and stuff like that. As that stuff dries, it tends to shrink a little bit and it will bend and twist on your foam. So be aware of that you want to give this stuff ample amount of time to dry before you really start getting into your scenery stuff. Same thing goes for this pink foam. I use Elmer's glue to glue it together. Over the surface areas that we're talking about, Elmer's glue has plenty of stiction power to hold things together. And I just go and buy dollar store toothpicks and I use them to kind of lock things in place while the glue is setting up. Now, this is important because as that glue dries, the foam will kind of bend and twist. And if you notice right at the very top of the screen where the Santa Fe engine was just passing by, you'll see kind of a break in the foam right there. That's warpage from the drying process. Those two pieces were completely flush with each other when I started gluing them, and it's just something that happens. Also on the left hand side of the screen here, while I was gluing together all the chunks to make this upper level, that crack wasn't there. That was something that happened kind of during the shrinkage of the glue drying. And it seems like, and this is strictly a theory, I have no proof for this, but when foam comes from the hardware store, it's in a drastically different environment than what it is in your house. And much like wood, as humidity changes, temperature changes, it shifts and moves a little bit. And so I want to make sure that this is locked in place and is really solid in the relatively standard environment that is my house. Now, I've talked about, I do have some temperature swings, but you can only do so much. And I just want to give it a couple of weeks just to make sure that any humidity changes are stabilized with it or what have you. It's just cheap insurance in my head. And I'm probably crazy. It might mean nothing, but I just want to take the time to do it. So I haven't been painting or doing anything like that, just leaving it pink foam, and I've been gluing down sections of track as I feel things are coming to be locked in place. To the left here, just beside the crack, you'll kind of see there's an air gap underneath the rail there. That's a spot where the foam kind of has a dip from whatever. They're just minor areas of warpage that you're going to have to deal with. So before you do your scenery work, make sure all of that stuff is in the layout, you know where it's at, and so you can work with it. It really sucks when you do a bunch of scenery work, especially like with that Plastamold stuff, and as things dry and as time goes on, things shift and kind of crack and pop out of place. So that's what I'm trying to avoid. Now, what you see here, I have some paint work done. I came in kind of over here, added a little more foam on this edge to kind of have a hillside over here, and just did some paint work. For the price of $2 or $3 of acrylic paint from Walmart, I just kind of wanted to come in and get a quick look of what the grass work was going to look like in this area. On my upper level here, we're going to be pretty flat because I'm going to install that log mill right there. So I don't want to have a whole lot of hillside over here. I'm going to have possibly a couple pieces of equipment and that type of thing. So it's going to be kind of a flat area with log stacks and that type of stuff. As well as my water feature, I want it to be accessible. However, there's going to be lots of trees up in here, so that's going to hide the fact that it is relatively flat. I prefer to just make foam hills and kind of glue them on the layout and then use buildup of, you know, foliage, texture, shrubs to kind of hide the flatness of things instead of carving away at this and making, you know, a flowing hillside. I don't have the big open expanses like you would see on a massive layout, so some flat area isn't really going to bug me. However, I am changing up the way that I would normally do this. The reason why I'm kind of painting this is just so I can kind of get an idea of what it would look like, because I usually come in, I do most of my dirt work and my foliage work and some of my tree work before I ballast, just to kind of get a good idea of what things look like. I'm changing up the way I do things. Normally when I did that, I end up with ballast kind of everywhere. I'm not super steady, and ballasting Unitrack can be a little more of a hassle than regular track just because there's not a whole lot to hold the ballast in place. So I'm changing up the way I do it. I'm going to kind of get everything where I like it. I'm going to put kind of a layer of paint on everything, see what it looks like. Happy with it? Awesome. So now I'm going to start doing all of my ballasting work. This entire layout's going to get ballasted before I lay down any scenery. And so one, for videos, the paint's going to act as a little bit of a buffer from the pink death that everybody's been seeing. And two, it kind of gives me a good indication of what things look like, so I'm happy with how everything's shaped before I do the ballast work. Because once I do the ballast work, I don't want to be cleaning up pink foam on things again. So it's going to have to be pretty well locked in at that point. Now, I'm not going to ballast in between the rails this time. I found in my last couple layouts that the areas that I didn't ballast in between, you almost can't see the difference on camera. And the areas that I did, as time went on, some of that ballast would break out. I have to move my layout to do maintenance, so shifting and things can cause that ballast to break out. And if you don't catch it, it just ends up in the gear set of your trucks when you least expect it. And usually I could catch it before it did any damage. However, there are situations where I did have to replace some gears on some engines. So I would like to avoid that completely. And to me, I think it's going to look just as good without ballasting in between the rails. So do the sides, and then we'll come in and lay down dirt and foliage for a good look. After we do that, I will come in and I will start placing the trees, which leads me to my question for the community. I went on eBay and ordered a bunch of what turned out to be cheap Chinese trees, because they said they were sold in the United States and then they obviously shipped them out of China. The quality was not there. I unfortunately don't have the time to build my own trees. I'm moving into my busy season at work, so I would love some recommendation on some affordable, good-looking trees that I don't have to build. So if anybody's got anything that way, I would love to hear it, because I plan to have a lot of foliage on this layout as compared to my other one, which was pretty sparse that way. So lots of trees, lots of bushes. So let's go ahead and do a walk around, talk about some of the things I changed, and I will let you get on with your day. So like I said, I came in here and did some of my scraping work. This is how I do my rock faces now. I really like the texture that you get. If you get a nice dark base layer, I'm going to need to get a couple more, because you can see when you cut up the pink foam, it ends up becoming a little bit porous. And that's fine, it gives me a nice rock texture, but you really have to lay the paint on in the first couple layers. As you can see here, I got a lot of bleed through, and over here where I've got a second layer, it really cleans things up. So 3, possibly 4 layers of paint. That's going to be nice and dark. And then we'll come in and start laying down our browns and our dark grays to give a good base coat for the rock. And then I will probably come in with whites and light grays and do some dry brushing to really accent the rock faces. And it should give us a nice cut and gravel look. And then you add a little foliage here and there, maybe a bush growing in a crack, and suddenly you've got a really nice rock face. So happy with this is the way this is turning out, but definitely needs a whole bunch more paint. You can tell over here where I've got, I think this is 3 layers. It definitely gets less light pink bleed through, and to be quite honest with you, studio lights really bring that out. Over here I did paint this a little bit, kind of get an idea of what this is going to look like. I ended up leaving the smooth edge over here and kind of was just running paint down the side of it. I think it gave it a decent look. When we get some actual foliage on there, we'll see how it looks. I might change that up just a little bit. Haven't done any work on the water feature yet. Need to do some more foam. I cut in the rock wall alongside here. And then over here I got my little special feature end scale. You kind of have to compress everything. So odd place, but I wanted it somewhere that I could get it occasionally on video. I've got a little bit of a cave right there, and I'm hoping I can order a Yeti that I can have standing in there just as kind of a funny little video catch every now and then. I like stuff like that on my layout. Up top over here, I added some hills to this, and we'll cut into this a little bit more to kind of even that out as time progresses here. I had to put my UFO back in its crash spot over here, so that's going to get a bunch of dirt around it to kind of clean up the little crash area we got there, make it look more realistic. But again, got to have some of the fun stuff. So my UFO's back. Let's see. Oh yeah, I kind of determined where I wanted my what do they call it, a bush strip. I'm looking for a cub on eBay right now, so hopefully I can find a little cub for right here, a little parking area. And then I want to get a pre-built little log cabin to go up there. I'm just not steady enough to build that stuff, and I find the instructions for most of them really frustrating. So anyway, I haven't done any work per se on my little station here. However, I went ahead and got my my filler board for my access panel installed. There's just pieces of extra MDF that are screwed in over here, and you flip them around. They just kind of hold it up into place. One thing I learned, I use Craig screws to hold those in place, and then make sure that you always have room to spin them in the tighten direction constantly. And that way, if you can totally flip the thing around in the tightening direction, so, you know, righty-tighty, you never have to worry about them getting loose, and they always really hold up with a lot of force. So keep that in mind if you ever decide to do one of these. I glued in some, you know, just some little hills in there. We'll cover them with gravel. They'll look like big gravel piles, what have you. I'll kind of come in here, do some painting, kind of like I did over here. I've got the walls kind of chipped out. Same process, really dark base coat, then gray, then we'll dry brush some whites and light grays, and then that hopefully will look pretty much like a gravel pit. I will have a road that comes around here, sneaks by the edge, back up over to that. Hoping to get a building to go over there, kind of like a office for this. And then if I can find a few more of these on eBay, as well as some other equipment, I hope to have that kind of look like a working area. Again, got all my wiring in on the yard. It has been 100% reliable. It really seems to work better than my other one. I made sure when I put these in this time that they function really freely. I had a couple of these that were maybe in a bit of a twist on my old layout that didn't function as well as I would like them to. And I fixed an issue back over here. I was having some reliability issues. I ended up soldering both of those connectors to the re-railers there. The re-railers kind of try to pop up a little bit, so I was getting kind of bump right there. It wasn't causing derailing, but it was causing a moment of loss in power. So you hit the bump a little bit and it kind of lift up your front trucks. You flicker power, kind of looked dumb. So went in, did a quick solder job on that, and so far been really good. So I'm then happy with the functionality of this. So this will get glued probably tonight. I've got some old foam chunks that I've stacked up 3 or 4 high. I'm going to build the hillside that's going to go back up over here. I just need to get them glued together and then cut to go around the 2x4 so I can slide them back there and start cutting foam till I get the shape I want. So making progress slowly but surely. And here shortly I'm going to pull all these trains off and we're going to switch over to some new ones for this week's running videos. So thanks for stopping by, everybody. I'll see you Friday for the rolling stock review. Have a good week. Bye now.